Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld podcast. It is July 28th, 2019, and tonight's topic, one coin to rule them all, Bitcoin versus Litecoin. I want to have a discussion prompted from Bitcoin maximalists, and I want to compare Bitcoin to Litecoin, but not because I think that the two are equal or even remotely equal, but I want to discuss the concept of Bitcoin maximalism and what they call SHIT coins, and since this is a family-friendly show, we'll call them S coins. Now, the theory goes that Bitcoin, Satoshi created a perfect coin, and that all other cryptocurrencies are essentially knockoffs, inferior imitations of Bitcoin, and I largely agree with that, although there are some people, just to clarify the terminology, people call crypto, they say there's thousands of cryptocurrencies. That's not necessarily true. A lot of what people are calling cryptocurrencies aren't currencies at all. They may be utility tokens. They may, in a sense, be securities. They're not really meant to be a currency. But let's just stick to the idea of currencies. And it is a correct statement that when you take the Bitcoin code and you just do a knockoff, that somehow you've created the equivalent of Bitcoin. Now, you haven't. And no coiners make this argument all the time that Bitcoin is really not limited in value. There's 21 million Bitcoin, but you can create a number of forks or any number of knockoffs to Bitcoin, and therefore there's an infinite supply of Bitcoin. And what that fails to take into account is that, sure, anyone can create a coin, you got open source, but you need an entire ecosystem around it. You need hashing power, you need miners, you need exchanges, you need acceptance, you need holders, you need wallets. There's a whole system that you need, and just creating a coin doesn't mean anyone's going to show up. So it's really not a good argument that no coiners make. But the Bitcoin maximalists somewhat take that view, and as if there really can only be one Bitcoin, and the first is the best and will always be the best, and all other coins are relegated to S coin status. Now, I tend to agree with the idea that Bitcoin is and probably will be the predominant coin. But what I don't agree with is that it will be the only coin. Now, there's a number of theories on why it would be the only coin, and I think they're not compelling. The idea that there can only be one money, well, we've seen in history, and the Bitcoin maximalists use this. They say, well, gold eventually knocked out silver. Well, maybe it did, but silver had a good run, thousands of years of silver as a monetary currency in the Roman times, in the United States. Yes, they got demonetized, but so did gold. There's choices. People use silver more as a medium of exchange than they did gold. Gold more of a store of value, but yet they both coexisted for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But I don't like to look at gold and silver as an analogy, because gold and silver were not created to be money. Gold and silver are God's creations, and people learn to use them as money over time. Bitcoin and Litecoin were created not because anyone had a pre-existing need for them, but because Satoshi wrote a white paper and he was trying to create a payment system, peer-to-peer system, eliminate the double spending problem, and he did that, or she did that, or they did that, and that's how you have Bitcoin. Now, another common misconception is, well, Litecoin is just as good as Bitcoin. It's just its little brother. It's silver to Bitcoin's gold, and the only difference is that it has 4 times more coins, so it can be spent better. 84 million will be created. Bitcoin is 21 million. Well, it goes further than that, because Bitcoin, again, has a much larger ecosystem, more hash rate, more users, more transactions, more Bitcoin ATMs, more acceptance on exchanges, more on-ramps, and so on. However, this is where I think it gets a little tricky. Yes, Litecoin is a knockoff of Bitcoin. It's almost essentially the same coin, and to a Bitcoin maximalist, well, there's no need for that. We don't need Litecoin. We don't need any of these other S coins. And I would agree that there's not room for thousands of other ecosystems and other S coins, because who's going to use them in any, I don't say monetary system, but almost in any system, you get a consolidation of a few chosen large entities. You see it in Coca-Cola, Coke, and Pepsi. You have large entities. You have the dollar, you have the euro. Now again, fiat currencies are different than cryptocurrencies, are different than Coke and Pepsi, are different than Apple and Microsoft. Yeah, certainly, and they're different than gold and silver. But generally, there is at least room in most instances for two top currencies. Now, the Bitcoin maximalists will tell you, well, gold is the currency. Well, it wasn't for thousands of years. It wasn't the currency. We had periods of time in the Roman Empire where through 286, I believe, it was all silver, and then they flipped over to gold. And there was 200 years using silver and not gold. United States, you had bimetallic system up until 1873, and then silver still hung on until 1968 when they got rid of the silver certificates. And again, gold and silver are different. They have different properties. They have different uses. They have different histories. But Bitcoin and Litecoin have closer to identical properties and identical uses than gold and silver. Bitcoin was invented in 2008, was released in 2009, a Litecoin a couple of years later. But here's where I think the Bitcoin maximalists are incorrect. I don't think there should be or could be only one money. First of all, what is happening is consumer use will dictate what happens to both coins. Miners will dictate, there's markets will dictate or shape what's going to happen. I've had these discussions on Twitter with others before, and they say that there can only be one globally secure blockchain, and I actually think that that's preposterous, and I don't even think that's desirable. If there's somehow an issue with the Bitcoin blockchain, may not be on that issue may not exist on another blockchain. It's always good to have a backup. S-coiners, though, think that there could be hundreds of secure global blockchains, and I think that's also preposterous. But they think that the one that they have, S-coin, whatever, will be one of them. But I do think there is room for one, and I think it could be Litecoin, it could be Bcash, it could be Bcash SV, it could be Zcash, it could be Dash, could be Monero, could be a privacy coin, or it could be a few of them. But I don't think that you could just have one. But one of the things that I was looking at was this where Bitcoin is versus where Litecoin is versus Bitcoin today. Let's take a look at this chart here. I tweeted. It looks better than the tweet. Now, as I mentioned, what makes a coin is not just putting it out there and saying, see, now I have a coin and I can issue as many as I want. We know that the Bitcoin is 21 million, Litecoin is 84 million. Litecoin actually has 21 million left to mine, and Bitcoin only has about 3 or 4 million left to mine, and Litecoin is having its halving next week, and Bitcoin in less than a year, and there'll be fewer coins coming onto market. But that's only it's not a small part of the story, but it's only part of the story, how many coins are out there. But one of the things I noticed is I went back and I looked at Litecoin, where it is today, its hash rate, its daily transactions, and its market cap. Those are three indicators, and not all the indicators, of how it's performing, what footprint it has in the marketplace. So if I issued a coin or you issued a coin, I just took the Bitcoin code, threw out Smaulgld coin, I wouldn't have a hash rate, no one would mine it, no one would trade it, no one would own it. It just wouldn't exist. But Litecoin is actually pretty far along. Now, look where Litecoin is today. It's nowhere near where Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is 10 times the size in transactions, miles ahead of it in hash rate and miners. Its market cap is, I don't know, it's like 40, 50 times the size of Litecoin. But Litecoin is relatively substantial, not in relation to Bitcoin. But let's look at where Litecoin is, and when did Bitcoin first hit the milestones where Litecoin is today? Well, in order to reach a hash rate of 450 terabytes, Bitcoin took till August 2013. Now, August 2013, if you recall, was when it was having its first big run up in the $100 range, where it went all the way up to $1,000 by the end of the year. It had already hit 30,000 transactions in June of 2012, and it had reached a market cap of about $6 billion during that run-up in the fall of 2013. Now, at the time, I don't think there were such things as Bitcoin maximalists, but was Bitcoin at the time an S-coin? Because it only had a hash rate of 450, only had 30,000 daily transactions, and only had a market cap of around $6 billion. I don't think so. My point is this. Now, we don't know if Litecoin will continue at the pace and grow. In other words, if Litecoin is Bitcoin in 2013, that in 5 years, 6 years, it'll be where Bitcoin is now. But it could, and part of that could be just because as the market grows, people will go into other coins. Now, Bitcoin maximalists think that can happen, that everything will trend towards one coin to rule them all. I don't know if that's wishful thinking or just looking at the head start that Bitcoin has had. I do agree that you can have thousands. It probably won't never happen, but it could, not thousands, but you could have at least dozens of secure networks if people are willing to invest in them. When I say invest in them, their time, their development, and so on. And just a couple of points here. Gold and silver are free market currencies and both held large positions in the market for different reasons. Well, Bitcoin and Litecoin could serve two different markets. One of the things we are seeing, there's a push to get Bitcoins into ETFs. There's a push to do Bitcoin trading, holding, and they're talking about, well, but Bitcoin will be the preferred transactional currency because the Lightning Network, and you don't have to worry about the block sizes, the speed, and so on. Well, first of all, maybe Lightning doesn't work properly. Maybe there's restrictions on Lightning. Maybe there's, who knows? We don't know. Right now, Lightning doesn't work. When I say doesn't work, it's not like it's being used. It may get used in the future, but right now it's not there, and it might not be. We don't know if that's going to happen. It's possible that if Lightning is not up and running and people want to use Bitcoin as a transactional currency, they may find that other coins are more convenient and that the settlement time is faster. It's also possible that people, once they start seeing Bitcoin rising, they may not want to part with it. They may view that as the promotion is it's digital gold, where you don't spend the currency. You spend the currency that's not as is valuable. Now, obviously, if the currency is not valuable at all, you just dump it. Like the Venezuelan bolivars, you don't want to hold those longer than you need to hold them because they're not going to be worth anything in a short period of time. But if you look at, here's one for you. Gold and the dollar. If you explain to somebody that gold holds its value over time better than the dollar, and you gave them an opportunity to take either the dollar or gold in payment, most people would take the dollar. That's what most people do. Most people get paid in dollars. They don't get paid in gold. And there's not really offering that. But the point is that the dollar has value because people want it to trade. Gold has value because people want it to hold and as a store of value. Well, it could happen, and I don't know if this will happen, but it could turn out that people don't want to spend Bitcoin. They just want to hold on to it. And people may want to spend a cryptocurrency, and they may want to spend what they think is the best and the fastest. And maybe that's Litecoin. Maybe that's Bcash. Maybe that's Monero. Maybe that's Dash. Maybe that's Zcash. Who knows? Maybe it's Craig Wright's Satoshi's Vision Coin. But the point is, I believe it is not settled that there needs to be one coin that'll be a store of value and will be the currency that is used. Now, if you look at Litecoin's development hash rate and market cap, it's on its way there. It may stop. And maybe people will gravitate towards a single transactional currency for ease of use. But I think there'll always be alternatives. And I say here, Bitcoin may end up being digital gold and not used to transact with much. And if that's the case, that leaves room for transactional coins. Now, a transactional coin as a transactional currency may not be a great store of value. Janet Yellen once said, the dollar is not a good store of value. Well, no, it's not. but it's a better store of value than the Venezuelan bolivar, and it ensures, because it's transactional and people use it to transact, that it still has value. And I can see that happening to an S coin or an altcoin, where it's good, maybe not as the store of value that Bitcoin is, but it's needed to have another secure blockchain on which people can transact. Because remember, the Lightning Network is, the transaction gets recorded after. Maybe for secure, larger transactions, you want to do something on-chain. You don't want to do it on Lightning Network. Just a couple other points. Bitcoin scalability mean little if people hoard it in cold storage or ETFs or other funds. If that's where, you got to remember, a lot of the Bitcoin is being hoarded, is being held. It may not become a transactional currency. Maybe none of these currencies will become transactional. The idea of setting a winner in advance now, I think, is preposterous. Now, there was another story out. They were talking about Ethereum. I'm not trying to muddy the waters here, but this article was saying why Ethereum is no longer an altcoin. And the article points out that Ethereum tracks the Bitcoin price somewhat closely. It's the world's largest blockchain platform. It has 1,600 dApps on it. It's the second largest in terms of market cap. It's got a large developer community, even larger than the Bitcoin. It's the second most talked about. I don't think that means much, but it kind of does, because if it's top of mind of people in the industry, consumers, then it will attract investment. It will attract interest. It says it's the most decentralized blockchain in existence. There's 17,000 nodes running the blockchain across 6 continents. Now, Bitcoin has 66,000, but some of those they mention are in large data centers. And of course, Litecoin is further down the trail there. And also Ethereum's the most active smart contract platform. Okay, so the difference though, I think, with Ethereum is it's not really a cryptocurrency. However, the point being is that it does serve a different market niche than Bitcoin has, and that Bitcoin serves. So I'm not quite sure that we can call everything but Bitcoin an S-coin. We can distinguish them. We have distinguished Libra. We can see that's a centralized coin. That's a centralized issuer. It's going to have more centralized security. There'll be the ability to reverse transactions, the ability to kick people off the platform. A lot of features that, or bugs, that you wouldn't have in other coins, decentralized blockchains. So I don't believe in this. I want to know what you guys think below. Is that we have this arguing almost by assertion that money is winner take all, and that everything is binary, that you're going to have either Bitcoin or no coin. I don't think it's that way. I think there's a chance that maybe, I'm not ruling out that Bitcoin may not just assert such dominance that it becomes futile to even run an alternative blockchain. I don't think that would be a good thing, as Bernie would say. And people or markets do generally tend towards a winner, but I have an issue with insisting that'll be the case based on reading a book or just hanging around people who say the same thing all the time. But I leave it open. I don't have a strong opinion on it. I do think that there is a speculative chance that another coin, such as Litecoin or another coin, could not necessarily eclipse Bitcoin, but continue on and serve a market need as it grows. It's also possible that maybe one of the coins that hasn't been launched yet, or one of them that is launched yet, somehow will capture the fancy, for whatever reason, of the public, the developers, the miners, more than Bitcoin. What do you guys think?